This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Monday, January 11th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. One of Africa's longest ruling leaders faces 10 candidates vying for Uganda's presidency in Thursday's election. David Doyle has more on the main contenders.
One of Africa's longest ruling leaders, Yoweri Museveni, is seeking to win a sixth term when Ugandans head to the polls on January the 14th. Extending more than 3 decades of rule after he seized power in January 1986 at the end of a 5-year guerrilla struggle. At the time, he was cheered by Ugandans for ending cycles of bloodletting under Milton Obote and Idi Amin. And Museveni also oversaw economic growth as foreign investment flowed in. US President Bill Clinton embraced him as one of a new generation of African leaders, committed to democracy and economic reforms. After first becoming head of state 35 years ago, Museveni vowed to put the population at the heart of politics.
For the first time, we're going to talk about the population, their life, their political rights, their economic interests. That will be the center of gravity.
But more recently, he's faced criticism over alleged corruption and nepotism that he denies. His wife is education minister, his son leads the military special forces. A 2017 constitutional change has allowed the now 76-year-old to stand in this election.
What rights do they have with the ballot papers?
His main challenger in the last 4 votes was Kizza Besigye of the Forum for Democratic Change, the party with the most lawmakers after the ruling National Resistance Movement.
Get him, please! Arrest me for what?
FDC's new leader, Patrick Oboy-Amuriat, has been arrested on multiple occasions, blocked from campaigning and roughed up by security forces. Also on the receiving end of alleged police violence is pop star and politician Bobi Wine. Born in a slum in Kampala, he was 3 years old when Museveni came to power and now leads the National Unity Platform. His music career, fueled by lyrics decrying poverty and freedom fighters who became dictators, took off in the early 2000s. Uganda! And contributed to his widespread popularity among Uganda's youth.
We've been able to massively awaken the people of Uganda. And if people are allowed to go out and vote, we would beat Museveni with over 80%.
Wine, whose birth name is Robert Chigalani Santamu, has been arrested multiple times and his rallies broken up with tear gas. Police say the gatherings contravene lockdown rules.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Armed men on Sunday ambushed and killed at least 6 rangers and wounded several others in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo's Virunga National Park, a sanctuary for endangered mountain gorillas, according to the park spokesman. The identity of the assailants was not immediately clear. Previous attacks against the rangers have been blamed on various militias fighting to control land and natural resources in eastern Congo. 12 rangers were killed in a deadly attack last April. Virunga sits on the forest-covered volcanoes of Central Africa and is home to over half the global population of mountain gorillas. The United States on Sunday started the process of establishing a consulate in contested Western Sahara after Washington recognized Morocco's sovereignty there in exchange for Rabat, normalizing ties with Israel. U.S. Ambassador to Morocco David Fisher visited the port of Dakhla in the far south of Moroccan-controlled Western Sahara to mark the start of work on a diplomatic office. Western Sahara is a disputed and divided former Spanish colony, mostly under Morocco's control, where tensions with the pro-independence Polisario Front have simmered since the 1970s. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden, who will replace President Donald Trump on January 20th, has not publicly commented on Western Sahara. Medical resources are hemorrhaging in hospitals in South Africa's Western Cape province as the country continues to grapple with surging COVID-19 cases. The death toll in South Africa due to COVID-19 has surpassed the 33,000 mark. The current confirmed cases in the country now top 1.2 million, according to Johns Hopkins University data. The sharp increase is widely believed to have been driven by a new coronavirus variant, which scientists say is much more transmissible than the one first detected. Abi Gwogu, the acting manager of medical services at the local West Floor Hospital, says the second wave came much fiercer than the first. She says, quote, "With the second wave, the patients are a lot more sicker. There's more of them coming to be admitted. This is a high-risk zone for COVID-19 infection. We're doing the best that we can. There's COVID-19 everywhere." Countries around the globe are scrambling to contain the new coronavirus surges as cases worldwide top 88.2 million people. VOA's Mariama Diallo tells us about measures some countries are taking to keep the virus from spreading further.
Japan declared a state of emergency in Tokyo and 3 nearby areas this week as coronavirus cases continue to surge, hitting a daily record of nearly 2,500 in the capital. Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga says emergency measures will last a month.
Since the New Year holiday, infection cases have been extremely high, and the situation has become very severe.
Authorities aim to start a vaccination campaign by the end of February. Reaction in Tokyo is mixed.
I favour it. If we don't declare a state of emergency, we cannot stop people from going out.
I work for an IT firm, so we often go out drinking after 8 p.m. and consult each other about work. I don't know where to do that now. I'm in trouble.
COVID-19 is surging far beyond Asia. Lebanon is under a 25-day nationwide lockdown. The small nation hit a new single-day infection record for the third straight day Thursday, with nearly 4,800 cases. The pandemic is adding misery to an unprecedented economic and financial crisis that triggered a debt default and sent its local currency plunging, losing 80% of its value to the dollar. In Africa, Senegalese President Macky Sall declared a state of emergency and imposed a curfew in 2 of the nation's most affected cities, Dakar and Thiès, where he says 90% of the country's coronavirus cases are concentrated. Many say even stronger measures are needed.
I don't see the point of having a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew because people circulate more in the morning and have more contact in the morning. In the buses, on the sidewalks, people are going out but do not wear masks and do not respect anything at all. I think it should be much stricter.
It is not good because we have to stop working earlier, but that's the solution. That is what protects us and protects our family.
Around the world, the number of confirmed coronavirus infections now tops 88.2 million, according to Johns Hopkins University. Mariama Diallo, VOA News.
Now to the United States, where politically motivated mob violence in Washington, D.C. is still sending shockwaves through the country. Americans continue to grapple with the assault on the U.S. Capitol last Wednesday and what it means for the country moving forward. VOA's Ken Faribault reports from the Midwest state of Illinois.
Scrolling through news websites on his home office computer, Kent Redfield, a former Illinois state government employee and retired professor, couldn't believe what he was watching unfold at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
This was an attack on the legitimacy and authority of government and the rule of law, and so it was... it was just stunning. It really was disbelief and very difficult to get your head around.
Amid heightened security, activity at the Illinois State Capitol building in Springfield, where Redfield once worked, was noticeably quiet in the days following the riot at the U.S. Capitol. The implications of the attack increased Redfield's anxiety.
A really serious terrorist attack could have, crippled the United States government. When those sorts of things started to sink in, and the pictures of the representatives, sheltering in the galleries and stuff, it just, the gravity of it started to hit you.
Kirkwood, Illinois farmer Wendell Shawman watched the lawlessness at the U.S. Capitol unfold on his living room television.
I don't think we know the full story yet. Whether this was all Trump supporters that really stirred this up, or whether there was somebody else that took advantage of the opportunity to really raise havoc and raise hell, I don't know. I think that time will tell on that, hopefully.
Recent events and President Donald Trump's role in them, including his rejection of the presidential election results, have Shawman reevaluating his support for the man he voted for in 2016 and 2020.
It's certainly gone down. I still, you can't discount what he did over the 4 years. I think the country, for a large part, is better off for it. He did not leave gracefully.
It must admit, I would worry that we're coming to the end of what I call democratic principles that we've understood and taken for granted for most of my life.
Longtime Illinois bookseller John Paul has a deep appreciation for history. His bookstore, Prairie Archives, is near the old Capitol building in Springfield, where in 1858, former President Abraham Lincoln delivered his famous House Divided speech. The address explored America's deep division over the wrongs of slavery ahead of the U.S. Civil War. John Paul believes Lincoln would mourn the current political divide in a union so many gave their lives to preserve.
Well, I'm reasonably convinced that he would be extremely shocked. Throughout the entire political history of the United States, we've never had issues that were like this. So,
Paul hopes a sense of national unity can be rekindled by President-elect Joe Biden, who appeared in front of Paul's bookshop when then presidential candidate Barack Obama introduced him as his running mate in 2008. Paul says much has changed during the 12 years since, and he worries about damage done to the credibility of the U.S. election process and whether Biden can effectively govern a politically fractured nation.
The extreme right wing is going to reject any sense that Biden is a legitimate president, and this is just going to make his job much more difficult in trying to convince the public that he is and that he's trying to work on their behalf. All we can hope for is that it doesn't stay the same way that it is.
Paul's hopes will be put to the test beginning January 20th, when Trump departs the White House and Biden takes the oath of office to become president. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Springfield, Illinois.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the annual U.S. Consumer Electronics Show goes all digital for the first time. We'll be right back.
Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America headquarters here in Washington. I am Shaka Sali. Straight Talk Africa, we call it like it is. We discuss issues that reflect the interests of our audience without fear or favor. We are guided by facts, and I look at myself as a servant of nothing but the truth.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Last week's joint session of Congress, shaped up as President Donald Trump's last chance, however far-fetched to subvert the November election results and claim victory for another term. And he counted on the continued loyalty of Vice President Mike Pence, who formally presided over the proceeding. VOA Steve Reddish has more.
Madam Speaker and members of Congress, pursuant to the Constitution and the laws of the United States.
Objections by congressional Republicans to the constitutionally required ceremony of counting the electoral votes, certifying that Democrat Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election, were expected. But a riot by supporters of President Donald Trump and his unfounded claims that the election was fraudulent broke open the growing cracks in Trump's Republican wall of support.
The Republican Party, unfortunately, has become really a cult of personality. And as I said, to be a Republican means to support President Trump no matter what.
But tireless loyalty from Vice President Mike Pence ended Wednesday, telling supporters what he told Trump the day before. He has no power to subvert the election results. Trump kept up the pressure on Pence during a rally near the White House hours before the count began.
All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify, and we become president, and you are the happiest people.
Before the mob breached the Capitol, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warned his colleagues of the political peril they faced by objecting.
The Constitution gives us here in Congress a limited role. The voters, the courts, and the states have all spoken. They've all spoken. If we overrule them, it would damage our republic forever.
Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri was the first to sponsor an objection to the electoral vote count. After the rioters were dispersed and order restored in the Senate, Hawley remained undeterred, even as the rioting had tightened the resolve of Democrats and some Republicans to approve Biden's win.
To those who say that this is just a formality today, an antique ceremony that we've engaged in for a couple of hundred years, I can't say that I agree. The opportunity to be heard, to register objections is very vital, because this is the place where those objections are to be heard and dealt with, debated, and finally resolved.
Senator Mitt Romney, the Republican nominee for president in 2012, took the young senator and others to task for supporting Trump's unfounded claims of election fraud.
No congressional audit is ever going to convince these voters, particularly when the president will continue to say that the election was stolen. The best way we can show respect for the voters who are upset is by telling them the truth. That's the burden. That's the duty of leadership. The truth is that President-elect Biden won the election. President Trump lost. I've had that experience myself. It's no fun.
And in the waning days of his single term, Trump faces the possibility of a second impeachment vote, which may force members of his own party to make a stand one way or another. Steve Reddish, VOA News, Washington.
With U.S. President-elect Joe Biden set to be inaugurated on January 20th, one question being debated is whether Congress will pursue a second impeachment of outgoing President Donald Trump over his alleged role in last Wednesday's attack on the Capitol building. VOA's Michelle Quinn has the details.
We need angry patriots to fill the House.
As the U.S. grapples with the aftermath of a riot by pro-Trump supporters that left 5 people dead, lawmakers are discussing whether to again impeach Trump, accusing him of inciting the crowd. Trump spoke at a rally prior to the attack, telling the crowd the election was stolen from them and to march to the Capitol building. On Thursday, the deputy White House press secretary issued a statement saying Trump condemned the violence.
Well, I absolutely believe that impeachment should be scheduled for several reasons. One, of course, our main priority is to ensure the removal of Donald Trump as president of the United States. Every minute and every hour that he is in office represents a clear and present danger, not just to the United States Congress, but frankly to the country.
There's an issue of timing. Trump is set to leave office on January 20, when President-elect Joe Biden is inaugurated. Some Republican lawmakers have written to Biden opposing impeachment, saying that pursuing that course of action just days before Trump leaves office is unnecessary, as it is inflammatory. Lawmakers are discussing other options as well.
I honestly don't think impeachment's the smart move, because I think it victimizes Donald Trump again. And I think there's a moment that we're in right now where Donald Trump, he's looking really, bad. You just can't even put that into words, right? He stirred up a crowd. It was an executive branch attack on the legislative branch, one of the worst days in American history.
There has also been talk of invoking the 25th Amendment, which details the process by which the sitting president or vice president is replaced in the event either person is not available for service. Reasons include death, dismissal from office, resignation, or incapacitation. In December 2019, lawmakers voted nearly along party lines to impeach Trump for abuse of office and obstruction of Congress. Trump was accused of abusing his power by pressuring Ukraine into announcing an investigation into Biden. He was later acquitted by the Senate. No U.S. president has ever been impeached twice. Michelle Quinn, VOA News.
With in-person coaching off the table due to the COVID-19 pandemic, hundreds of companies across the United States are using virtual reality training to help employees master some essential skills. Maxim Moskalkov has the story.
Because of the pandemic, HR specialists have faced the unique challenge of how to train new employees and staff during this time of remote work. Some companies are turning to virtual reality simulators like Immersion.
Immersion is a virtual reality simulator that allows people to practice and perfect the really challenging conversations that they have at work. The conversations that go on between a doctor and a patient, or a doctor and the family of a patient, for example.
Virtual reality can put a person in unorthodox situations that are hard to recreate in real life, and then lets them learn from their own behavior. Methods like this have been especially effective for training teachers.
To master those techniques on, if you will, digital avatars, fake kids, if you think of it that way, kids who behave like the real kids in the real world, but allow them to make mistakes and do no harm, right? If they make a terrible mistake in a practice lesson immersion, nothing happens.
Among the first schools that resorted to virtual reality technology were the Aurora District Public Schools in Colorado. The district's chief academic officer, Andrew Wright, says the schools employ a unique approach in teacher training.
We need practice for threat assessments and having difficult situations with parents and having to share news from our threat assessment team, as well as our counselors and social workers. Let's embed that into their practice and see how well it helps prepare them for some of those.
Live in Their World is a New York company that offers ethical norms and training sessions for various companies' employees with the help of virtual reality. Live in Their World founder Robin Rosenberg says virtual reality can unite people, which is especially important during a pandemic.
There are VR companies out there that can bring people together so everyone feels like they're in the same conference room, so that they're in, a room looking at objects together, manipulating objects for collaboration, for whiteboard, for a theater, all kinds of applications. And it can be incredibly powerful for people, particularly if they live alone.
One big downside to the technology is that VR headsets and other technology aren't as common as home computers, and tech support can be much more challenging. But for those who can get access, proponents say it's a great way to train for real life in these times of social distancing. Maxim Moskalko for VOA News, Washington.
As a major showcase for the latest innovation in consumer technology, the Consumer Electronics Show typically draws over 170,000 attendees from all over the world. But this year, it's going all digital for the first time in its history. VOA's Tina Trin reports.
At the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, better known as CES, you never knew what amazing new technology you might discover. But one thing you could always count on were the crowds.
Last year, we had just over 170,000 attendees from across the globe.
This year, around 100,000 have pre-registered and will be heading to the show via their laptops and computers.
We knew that it really wasn't feasible to do a live event in any shape or form. We just couldn't do anything safely.
Jean Foster is Senior Vice President at the Consumer Technology Association, which organizes CES.
There's a lot of platforms out there that try to replicate the physical world online, and we really were not looking to do that. We said, how do you really engage your audiences?
To help attendees sort through the dizzying array of exhibitors, organizers have set up a virtual anchor desk.
They're going to run through the entire show, and that's going to be a resource for our audiences to go and say, okay, what's the latest news? What was announced? What are the upcoming sessions?
And just as it's had a role in this year's new format, the pandemic has also spurred innovations in healthcare, streaming, 5G, and artificial intelligence.
You're going to see more about the technologies that are enabling, companies to transform their business digitally.
Over 1,800 exhibitors will take part in a digital showcase, down from about 4,000 last year. Nearly half are from outside the U.S. To find them, attendees can search by their country, technology, or name.
You can join in live sessions. It could be product demos. It could be thought leadership sessions.
Visitors will also be able to chat one-on-one with company representatives.
You can request a meeting, and you can start a meeting right away. So there's that real opportunity for you to collaborate with these global companies.
A virtual CES may not offer the sizzle of the usual big meetup in Las Vegas, but tech innovations will entice industry insiders and observers from around the world. Tina Trin, VOA News, New York.
In our sports news, Abe Gasho and Sige Gebresalama on Sunday won the men's and women's elite races at the Great Ethiopian Run. The 10-kilometer race was postponed last year due to COVID-19, and only 9,000 people participated in the mass race, which is more than 30,000 fewer than last edition in 2019. For Gasho, 22, it was his second victory in the event, having won it in 2016. He finished in a time of 28 minutes, 19 seconds. Gebresalama, also 22, claimed her maiden victory in the women's race, having narrowly missed out 2 years ago. There were several COVID-19 safety measures in place. Everyone had their temperatures checked when arriving at the event. Everyone had to wear masks before and after the 10-kilometer run. For the elite races, 210 athletes were tested for COVID on Friday. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us in Washington, thank you for watching.